So I'm going to be doing something a little bit semi-controversial here, and I'm going to be ranking how I think the AFL teams went in the 2024 AFL trade period. We're going to be going in alphabetical order, of course, today, and I'm going to be, doing this list based off A to F. If you had a really terrible off-season, I'm giving you an F straight up. If you had a really, really good off-season, you're getting an A+. That's just, I think, the reality of things right here. Again, if you happen to disagree with me, please don't go and threaten my whole entire family tree in the comment section down below. If you're going to take the time out of your day to comment something, maybe just comment how cute I look or something, or I don't know, how my new haircut is looking kind of like a Karen haircut, but at least you guys think it's cute. I don't know. Again, if you haven't already, there's still a pretty big amount of you guys who watch these videos that are not subscribed to the channel. So it would mean a lot to me if you guys went and go and leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those post notifications on the notification bell. And I guess without further ado, let's get straight into it. So we're going to be starting off with the Adelaide Football Club, and this is a great start. This is like a situation where it's almost like I want to give this team an A+, but just because they didn't bring in anybody, extremely good, it's probably going to be an A for now. But as a guy who's been majorly critical of Adelaide for their last many off seasons and has said they've been one of the worst drafting teams of recent era, which I stand by, they finally had a trade period which just knocked my socks off. Bringing in Isaac Cumming as a free agent, bringing in Alex Neil-Bullen as one of the most underrated players in the game just for pick 28. James Peatling, a future third and fourth for, again, what is a future second. Terrific. They're three extremely good role players who are going to really help this Adelaide team out. They also keep pick 4 and can actually go and draft someone really good in one of the top tier drafts that we've seen in a while. I think it was a really near flawless offseason. They just didn't bring an elite type of player in, which, again, is what earns most teams an A+ usually in many off seasons. So I'll be giving this one an A. They also probably get bumped up from a B+ just because of how bad they've sometimes been, and I just thought they genuinely cooked with this off season. We've got again now the Brisbane Lions, who really didn't do a whole lot. They kind of did, in my opinion, everything they needed though, but they didn't bring in any players. They didn't really do many trades. They just did a bunch of pick swaps, moving on from pick 20 to bring in again a bunch of future picks, a bunch of later picks, from Richmond, which can help them match Ashcroft. They also moved up slightly from, I think, 32 from St Kilda, where they were able to get like 27. So all in all, it's just an okay trade period. They really just set the foundation for Levi Ashcroft. So because Ashcroft's name is involved, it's a tiny bit above average, which is a C. So I'll give them a C+. Again, I didn't think they did anything wrong. They really just checked every box off that they needed to do, but nothing off the grid, nothing off the paper that was like, holy crap, that was insane. Again, we got the Carlton Football Club here, who I think had a really, really good off-season. Maybe not enough for a B+, but I really liked what they did, and I'm going to give them a B. Again, I know some people would grade them a little bit lower because they didn't bring in Dan Houston, which ultimately he picked Collingwood, but they cooked in a different way where they were able to trade for, 12 and 14. They lost their future first in saying that, but they were able to move up to pick 3. And why pick 3 is so good for Carlton is because they believe Richmond are going to be drafting Sam Lawler at the number 1 overall pick, meaning that Finn O'Sullivan, arguably the best midfielder in this draft class, is going to fall down to pick 3, who is one of the most athletic, agile, and a very quick player in this class that is going to help a Carlton midfield that has been really called one-dimensional and has been knocked by a ton of AFL experts and commentators for just being very, very easy to play against. They also moved Matt Kennedy, not because he's a bad player, but because, again, he fits that one-dimensional narrative of just the slower, taller Carlton midfielders like, Will Setterfield, and who was in previous. They've got Patrick Cripps in there. Again, You got some superstars in there, but it's slow and it can be manipulated if coached against well. Again, they move on from Matt Kennedy. They're bringing in whether it's Finn O'Sullivan or another midfielder who's going to help their cause, who should be a superstar for them for a long time. And I don't think they really went and overpaid to try and get a guy like Dan Houston in. I think they actually did really well in this offseason. I love the fact that they brought in pick 3. So I'm going to go with a B for Carlton. I thought it was a very good offseason for them. And you could argue a B- just because they didn't get Dan Houston. But you know what? I'll let you viewer decide which one you like better so you don't yell at me. Again, Collingwood, they're in that similar position where it's probably like a B for them. Again, they managed to win the war and bring in Dan Houston, but it's almost like at what cost? You know, they don't have a first round pick last season. They're not going to have one this season, and they're not going to have one next season. I would have given them a way lower grade because of that fact, but they brought in Harry Perryman as well, who they've done their research and they genuinely believe is going to step up and be a really good inside midfielder for them, who has had to play back for the Giants previously. And they believe Dan Houston, I think, will float through that midfield as well, who I believe played that before he moved to the halfback out of necessity for Port Adelaide. So again, overall, you bring in 2 elite players, but you lose a lot of picks. So it's tough. A part of me wants to say B-, but a part of me wants to say B, because if you win a premiership, then it's an insane off-season. But you could be really jeopardizing the next couple of years. And if you don't win a premiership next season, God, it could look bad. So we'll be giving it a B for now, but it has a lot of time to go from a B to a B+ or a B to an F if it really all goes wrong. But right now it looks good. I won't get too stressed if I was a Collingwood fan that you don't have any picks. Dan Houston and Harry Perryman are great finds, so I'll go a B. We also got Essendon as well. I mean, yeah, they didn't do anything this offseason but trade Jake Stringer. If you're one of those Jake Stringer haters, then I mean, this is a great offseason. It's an A, but if you're not, maybe even a C-. They also traded pick 9 away from Melbourne's future first, which time will tell how that goes. That could either be a really good trade or a really bad trade. If Melbourne are bad next year, terrific. You've done something really good. But if Melbourne still stay at that 10 to 13 range and it's just pick 9 next year, yeah, you're getting that in a weaker draft. The positive for them, for Essendon as well, is that they traded this pick to bring in some academy players and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I mean, God, if Melbourne are even top 10 next year, it doesn't look as pretty. I still want to maybe give this a C- because maybe they did this out of necessity. Just because I guess, you know, that pick, it made sense why they did it. But yeah, it could come back to bite them. They did it to move into next year. Brought in a bunch of future, you know, a bunch of later picks so they can get their academy players in, like Keiko. It's risky. It's definitely risky, don't get me wrong. We'll see how they go. Again, Fremantle, yeah, you're getting a B for this trade period. I think what they did and bring in Shea Bolton was fantastic. Shea Bolton is and was the best small forward in 2022 and has been a top 5 for the last couple of years still. And that's doing that without a big key forward to row from. Again, I think having key forwards in a lesser role at Freo is going to probably grant him 20 disposals per game and 2 goals. It's a fantastic pickup. It definitely gets him in the 8 next year. It definitely makes him to contend with 4. They also kept pick 14, which they can go and draft another good player in an elite draft. They're really building towards that first premiership. And this is the big first step that they needed to do. And it looks really good. We also got Geelong, who I'm going to give them a B+ here. Again, fantastic that they were able to get Bailey Smith. And they didn't have to give up a massive amount to do it. I think Bailey Smith is such a big player to bring in who asserts them almost as another top 4 team next year, who will probably get back to that prelim if we're being serious. He also adds into their inside midfield, which they've been trying to cover. I just think was arguably one of the biggest gets of the whole entire offseason. They re-signed everyone, kept everyone, didn't trade to Koning and ruin their depth. great moves all around for Geelong. What would have probably made this an A- is if they were able to get, I think, Clayton Oliver. Because if they got a healthy Clayton Oliver in, oh my God, it'd be almost putting them as premiership favourite. It probably would have been A if we're being realistic. But yeah, B+, because you bring in one of the best free agents, who some would say is the best, who should be phenomenal for them next season. Fits their biggest need of a team that was in the prelim. Yeah, what more can you want? That was really good by Geelong. Again, Gold Coast as well. This is what I think I have to give an A+. I think this was the perfect off-season. I don't think the Gold Coast Suns could have had a more perfect off-season that any team could have really had. Not only did they bring in Daniel Rioli, an elite halfback for their team who will help them out so much. Like, that is just an understatement. But they brought in John Noble, another really, really good halfback who unfortunately missed out on a flag that he should have played in for Collingwood, which sucked for him. They also, again, traded into next year where they got 2 future first-round picks. They traded 6 and 23 as well, not only for Rioli, but brought in a ton of later picks as well to help their academy players, getting Leo Lombard. And they were able to move Jack Lukosius and Rory Atkins in friendly deals, who were massively overpaid contracts that got them off their books, but also they were players that Dimmer didn't even want in the 23. I cannot stress that this was the perfect off-season for Gold Coast. You get rid of 2 players who were bad contracts for them, not even in Dimmer's 23, for Daniel Rioli and, John Noble. You still bring in as well Himmelberg for semi-depth, bringing in all those later picks to get Leo Lombard, one of the best players in the draft, and you just added 2 first-round picks next year. Who at Gold Coast decided to cook, bro? Like, that's just it's an A+ off-season. I don't want to hear it, man. And lucky last, number 9, the GWS Giants. I mean, yeah, very unfortunate trade period for them. You go and look at it. They lost Cumming and Perryman, 2 really good backman depth players for them. You also, lost Nick Haynes, who would have probably replaced those 2 guys going forward next year in that team. Again, not the worst loss, but still depth you lose. You also, unfortunately, lost James Peatling, who became a really solid player and probably their most improved in that final series. Xavier O'Halloran, I like that they kept him. That's probably one thing that they saved. He will add massive depth for their, team next year now that all these players have left. They brought in Jake Stringer, who I don't really like. I just don't really rate him, and I guess you had to bring him in for experience, but I'm not too sold on him. And again, you brought in a lot of first-round picks in this draft. I think 2 to be exact. But man, did they lose a ton of depth. You've also got this massive off-season issue now where a ton of players are going to be getting fined. I think rumoured match bannings. Will that happen or not? Probably not. But that's because of an off-season party that happened there. Some players dressed up pretty controversial. It's not been a good off-season for GWS at all. They lost a lot of players, a lot of depth. Brought in first-round picks, but yeah, it's a step back for a team that is wanting to take a step forward, that's for sure. So I didn't really like it. I might even go D+, because, again, it's not something that I like. And Isaac Cumming, it's a shame that you lost him. I thought he could have been good, and Harry Perryman could explode next year for Collingwood in that midfield if it all goes well. Again, I'll be doing a part 2 to this later on, so if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest sports content and sports news. Do you guys agree with everything I've said? Let me know down below. Subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRL/vlogging channels. Links for them will be in the description down below. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.